Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue 4, Dennis Culver writing with David Lafayette on the art. So this is what we'll probably refer to as the therapy issue, where it's a series of effectively shorts with the therapist talking to each member of the Doom Patrol, and she notably it taps in to 5 different people from the 5th dimension who all take refuge in her head, and
Jerry for short.
Jerry for short, yes. We find the names of the 5th imp, all 5 of the imps, but it's this Jerry for short, and it's the idea is they all want to help whoever they're talking to without revealing things they shouldn't reveal because they know more because they're from the 5th dimension. Interesting concept. I think this might be my least favorite issue of the book. Just purely because it doesn't really tell much of a story because of the way it's more of just a collection of here's where all the characters are right now.
I didn't want to be a really negative one again on this episode, but
I'm still sure you'll be more negative than I am. But
okay.
Go on.
Again, not a bad issue. Let's get that out of the way.
Yes, still good.
It's not a bad comic. On the scale of this particular Doom Patrol book, it is my least favorite. But the first 3 issues have all been great.
Yeah, they are still excellent, right? Everything looks great. There's a lot of great 2-page sort of layouts with these characters going over their history. We start off with one of the new guys, Degenerate. I had to look at his name there because I've not learned it. But he's going over everything that he's went through and how the Doom Patrol have helped him. He tells a little bit of a story of fighting vegetable animal, vegetable, mineral man, and then it's Rita, and she talks about being in a relationship with Flex and how she's helped get over some of her things, and how she's kind of the deputy leader of the team now, and that sort of thing. Then Larry talks about all the different changes he's went through and how the Shadow kind of had a life of its own, but now it's kind of left, and it's just his own shadow now that is the negative spirit. It's he's kind of went through this kind of change. Robot Man, of course, talks about who he is. Interesting little tidbit there is that Niles has a theory that part of the reason why Cliff keeps being rebooted successfully with different versions of his brain is that he's actually a metahuman, and that's why his brain can take all the punishment it's taken over the years. But it's presented as something where there's no reason to actually believe this. This is just something Niles has said because Cliff somehow keeps surviving.
It's an idea that was thrown in there that someone will probably pick up in 50 years' time and run with it.
Very possibly. And it almost just feels like he keeps surviving because we want Cliff to survive because he's a character we all like. But maybe someone will do something with it down the line.
It's there for your future Morrisons or Wades.
Yeah. Honestly, the more interesting part of this is probably Degenerate, and then the emotions girl. What's her name again?
Yeah, good question.
I've forgotten her name. But she talks about how she was hated by her father. She had to go on the run, and it wasn't until the Doom Patrol found her and sort of taught her how to keep her powers under control and how to use her, or even her body, because her physicality is different, that she found a home, all that kind of thing. And I do like the ending. The ending's quite good, where Chief, which is one of Jane's personas, goes in and is like, no, I'm not here for a session. Even though Jane used to come for sessions all the time, she doesn't. And she's like, no, I assure you, Doctor, Jane's perfectly happy. And then we see in the final page in the art a reflection of Jane looking very displeased. And this was hinted at in past issues.
I think it was like issue 1 or 2.
Yeah, Jane is in the underground unhappy that the Chief's up there the whole time now. So I do like this idea of a bit of a power play where the Chief character from Jane is almost hogging the controls against all the other characters' wishes. It's an interesting little thing to play with. I like that.
I think it's this is an issue that I would like a lot more in an ongoing than I do in a mini, if that makes sense.
I think that's a really interesting thing about this book.
It doesn't feel like it's playing the miniseries game.
This feels like an ongoing book that just happens to only be 7 issues.
Yeah. I don't know if that's them banking on getting an extension or a second season, so to speak. But if this was issue 13 of a 20+ issue run, you wouldn't even bat an eyelid. This would be a solid issue. Maybe, again, I don't think it would be an all-timer issue still, but it'd be a solid issue.
It's something I don't think we've talked about much when this has come up already, but even the first 3 issues, maybe not issue 1, because issue 1 is just an issue 1, and it's hard to like tell anything from that, but issues 2 and 3 do feel more like standalone chapters in a story that's maybe going to go for a while, rather than being parts 2 and 3 of like a simple arc. It doesn't feel like we're doing an arc per se. It feels like we're building blocks of a greater thing.
I think with issues 2 and 3, I could get by. Okay, we're doing 6-7 issues of just one-shot stories, so to speak, with maybe some connective tissue. Whereas this feels like it's a deeper dive into the team. It's looking at their psyches. This is building up. Okay, who they are, where they are right now. This feels like something you do in an ongoing book. And
but for the record, I don't think I have any complaints about any of that. Like, I actually kind of like that it feels like issues in an ongoing book. It makes me want an ongoing series.
It makes me want it to be ongoing. I think it's a little bit frustrating with this particular issue more than the others, in that it feels. This is going to sound so harsh, but I don't mean it to be so harsh. I don't know the other word to use though. It sounds like a slightly wasted issue. And I don't mean that to be really harsh, but like I say, if this is issue 13 in a 20-issue run, you feel like, okay, that's 1 of 20 odd. It's okay. When this is 1 of 7, it feels like, okay, you spent your middle issue of your run doing this. It's a more. I feel like when you've only got 7 issues, you're making choices as to what those issues are. They have a little bit more weight on it. You have to make sure they're the best issues you've got. And it's not this is a bad issue. I just feel like this is maybe not the right issue for a miniseries. And I don't know if that is Culver banking on getting more. Maybe he knows something we don't.
I hope he does.
I'm not sure I agree with the choice necessarily otherwise.
I mean, I think all the issues have felt kind of like they're part of an ongoing rather than a miniseries. Because a miniseries, typically, it's an arc. It's just a simple story arc that's going to have a beginning, middle, and end. And this feels more like, no, these are ongoing characters that we're dipping into, and we're going to tell individual, interesting stories that build them up. And I've really appreciated that. And this is the only one that's maybe been a little bit weaker, just because of the.
I think because I agree with what you're saying there, and I think the other issues have been individual stories that have been. Sure, like you could throw them in an ongoing and they wouldn't feel out of place. But like they've still been pretty self-contained stories. This issue isn't a story, right? There is no narrative structure to this issue.
And that's why it's the weakest one of the bunch. That's
why it sticks out as not something in a miniseries, even more than the others for me. Is it feels like very much like this is a snapshot of the characters.
Yeah, but because all the issues feel like they're not really miniseries issues, I actually don't have a problem with that part of it. My problem is just that it's a bit weaker because it doesn't really tell a story on its own. And yeah, I hope there is more. I've been saying that since issue 1 because
obviously
immediately it was great, and I
really hope there is more. Even with this issue being the weakest, it makes me want this to be an ongoing more because it makes this feel more natural in its existence if there's more issues.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to get a sequel series or something, or maybe there's plans for.
I think as well the fact that they gave Culver the Night Terrors book Zatanna, but made it with Robot Man as like a co-star in that book.
Yeah,
tells me maybe DC have some confidence in what he's doing with this book. Obviously, that will have been presumably underworks before there were even any sales data really on the first issue to work with. Of this, but unless this is selling horrifically badly in context of a Doom Patrol book, I want to say, because obviously they never sell amazingly. Unless this is selling particularly badly for that, I feel like they've got some faith in what he's doing here, at least.
There could be just a plan for a separate book that's like a sequel to this, where the Doom Patrol are going to feature heavily in, that Culver is going to be writing. It could be simple as that.
Even the last Doom Patrol book, the Gerard Way stuff, got 2 separate minis.
That's true. So it could be a case of like there is a clear plan for something beyond these 7 issues. I
hope so.
And then maybe that's where the big story is going to be, and this 7-issue series is all about the groundwork of who all the characters are and making us care about them all. And then whatever this next series could be, if there is one, it'll be more the actual 6-issue story of like a big event. And I don't mean event in the comic book sense. I just mean there's a story actually building up over the 6 issues as opposed to what this has been so far. That said, though, even if it is just a second series of stories like this, I'll actually be quite happy. I mean,
yeah, I would not be opposed to 6 standalone, just random issues.
Yeah, like I'd be fine with that again, because if we only get these 7, I'll be quite happy with what we've had so far. So it just makes me want more, which is about as positive as a thing you could say about most things. So what are you giving Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue 4?
I'm going to give it a 6.5. It's still pretty good, but I don't think it's quite as good as any of the previous issues. Yeah,
it's a happy 7 for me. I still think it looks great. I like the little character tidbits we get, especially the newer characters who we don't know as well. And the tease at the end with Jane and the chief character, I think, is all quite interesting. But it doesn't tell as much of a story as the previous issues, where those were all really good, like self-contained stories that played into the ongoing characters, but those all had really satisfying kind of overall like arcs in them. So it's a bit weaker by that nature.